What's going on, y'all? It's Big Games BS by the Sports Den, brought to you by, got some statics, thehumidor.com. Type in Sports Den at checkout with thehumidor.com for 20% off. It's really everywhere you need to go if you like cigars. It's really no other place to go check out. Everything else is overpriced and too expensive. Thehumidor.com basically gives you all your favorite cigars at a value price and free shipping over $150. On top of just they got everything you need: humidipacks, humidors, cutters, torches. Again, 5-pack cigars, whole boxes, whatever you need. 20% off, and you're good to go with thehumidor.com. Inside of the greatest lounge in America, the Goodfellas Lounge here off of St. John's Bluff here in Jacksonville, Florida. All kinds of fun stuff, man. All kind of live bands, Friday nights, Saturday nights, Thursday nights. Basically, there's something every day a week. We had karaoke last night. I had a meeting up here, and is it? Are we on Facebook Live? Yeah, we're on Facebook Live. All right. I had a meeting up here with a good friend of mine, and we met almost 20 years ago to the week, right? And it's just amazing how time flies. But I tell people, no matter what you believe about me, you may say James is stupid, James is ignorant. A lot of that's true. I'm ignorant to what I don't know, and I'm curious to the things that I don't know. But you're a sum total of the parts that you're around. And I'm blessed to know 2 Rhodes Scholars extremely well. One from the Princeton, New Jersey area, one named Myron Roll, and one that I literally entered school with, and again, I met him 20 years ago, and his name is Garrett Johnson. He was the first Rhodes Scholar athlete from Florida State. So when people always bring up these academic things, the University of Florida is the Harvard of the South. We're so smart here, blah, blah, blah. I tell them, how many Rhodes Scholars do you know? I happen to know a lot of Rhodes Scholars. I know 2, a lot more than probably what you know. I also know many doctors that I play with. Shout out to my guy, David Castillo. Shout out to a ton of guys that I played with or on offense or defense that are doing very, very well in life currently. So me and Garrett were catching up here, and right before we left, right before they got into it, but I can't think of the girl. What's the girl DJ name, Miles?
From here?
Yeah.
DJ Miss Tan.
Yeah, DJ Tan. Shout out to DJ Tan. She was had it going, man. I kind of wanted to sing, but Killer's sick, so I had to get back, and I didn't want that problem. I didn't want no arguments over trying to indulge, and y'all get enough of my singing on when I do my thing on in my car karaoke. So I almost gave y'all a rendition today. I was just some songs that I really like. Nita Baker is one of my favorite, but Garrett, just kind of while we're warming up because we haven't talked in a while. We haven't talked since last year. Happy 4th, that everybody is celebrating. If you didn't celebrate the 4th, this is what I'm just giving. You people, and when I say you people normally people like it's a white term for black people, but you people can mean it means white people, and it means black people. You people who don't like holidays, keep that shit to yourself, please. We don't care. I don't need an excuse to barbecue and I don't get paid for these days off, but you don't need an excuse to barbecue and have a paid vacation. Just accept it. If it's Hanukkah, if it's Yom Kippur, if it's Ramadan, if it doesn't affect you or it doesn't like involve you, just enjoy the time with your family. It's so wild that everybody has complained so much about not being able to spend time with family members that people pick fights when you could be spending that time with family members. But a lot of the reason is we know you hate your family and you really want to go to work because work is a distraction from how bad your everyday life is. I mean, even people complaining about the price of hamburgers and hot dogs going up and all that and gas, but you didn't complain about spending. You still spent thousands of dollars on fireworks. Trust me, I saw all of this shit. But in this conversation with Garrett, as we talked about name, image, and likeness, we talked about college. We reminisced on a lot of different things. Caught up family. He's got 2 great kids. We talked about, how when you're being a college athlete, it could actually kind of make you hate the sport that you participated in. We talked about these things catching up, and we brought up just what some of our old teammates were doing, and he brought up a name, like one guy, Dorian, I think it's Dorian Johnson. Anyways, he was a thrower. He's shout out to Florida State alum. He's the head coach at UNLV for track and field. We talked about a couple other people, but he brought up a guy who I want Garrett to come and speak to our Micanopy athletes about how he was able to leverage his time at Florida State into a prosperous tech career. But I want to talk about this guy and how fitting it is, because this time last week I was getting ready to go be a judge at Guns. Was it? Yeah, was it? Yeah, it was. Yeah, last week. Yeah, on last Saturday I was a judge at Guns and Hoses. Damn, was it last? No, 2 Saturdays ago. My bad. It's 2 weeks ago. Yeah, because 4th of July was this week. Anyway, 2 weeks ago I was a judge at Guns and Hoses, and I always make this joke that I understand why police officers shoot so much. They ain't got no hands. So, like, why waste getting your ass whooped when you can just shoot? TV screen again, Miles. So, but now I found out that Walter Dix, Olympic medalist, bronze, when we all first found out who Usain Bolt was, when he made his Olympic debut, he had the greatest quote in I believe track and field history with "That boy fast." That was literally what, when they asked him about Bolt, that boy fast. Because Dix was a guy who he's an All-American, like won national championships at Florida State in track and field. He is now an FBI agent. One of the fastest men in the world is an FBI agent. When I'm sitting here thinking, FBI, and I don't know what exactly he does as an FBI agent. I think it's awesome. But when I'm sitting here thinking, like, people like to run from cops, like, that's fucked up, because there's nothing you can do to get away from this man unless you run sub 10. And you still don't have a shot. But I just think that's unique. I thought that was funny. I like seeing former Florida State athletes prosper in various careers. As the NCAA made a statement, and they love to bring up, except for when they're talking about name, image, and likeness and players being spoiled, 99% of all athletes go pro in something other than their sport. So shout out to that. I think it's great. I think more police officers. We need more track and field. Shout out to my guy Joe Richardson, who is a former track athlete, who's a police officer here in the Jacksonville area, and I just think that's awesome. I want to I like doing recaps, right? So every now and then and I think today's show we're going to have 2 recaps. Things that we've kind of been talking about that have been in the news. One, I just really hate how they keep the false equivalencies of one unfortunate situation. But this one right here, and if you got it, Miles, you can bring it up. It's the Grambling State coach. Do we have my old audio with the coach?
On the page, I'll bring it up.
Okay. But just to keep you kind of refresh your memory, Grambling State recently hired a new volleyball coach. That volleyball coach came in and literally cut the entire volleyball team. Every last girl that was on the volleyball team. And what she did was she made the girls, she had a tryout for some of them that was non-volleyball specific. They ran gassers, they did different things. And she coached for the team who Grambling beat in the previous year. And the rumor was that she wanted to recruit her own girls, but she wanted to bring girls through the transfer portal over from where she had previously been at. And one of the girls who was basically an all-A student, she wrote this real nice piece on Facebook just describing how they really left them up the creek. And I think Grambling in general did a terrible job from a PR perspective of just making sure these girls, that student athlete was protected. Coaches got to do what they got to do. If you want to get rid of the student athlete, get rid of the student athlete. But volleyball is a full scholarship sport. A lot of those girls were not from the Louisiana area. The only reason they came to Grambling was this. And the young lady who was going into her senior year, who I think she was pre-med, was talking about how she chose Grambling over numerous PWIs. And for people who don't understand the terminology of the lingo, historically black colleges and universities is what HBCU stands for. HBCUs were created during a time when African American slaves were being freed. They were getting educated, and they wanted to learn more. They wanted to learn how to properly use the land. They wanted to learn how to read. A lot of these schools were also K through 12 institutions. There was a lot that went into it, and it was really they're really, really good. Florida A&M, Grambling is one of the more prestigious ones. Southern Howard, I believe, is the first HBCU that was created. And Howard's also one of the finest academic institutions you can go to. They have all, it was probably a little bit later than that, Miles, than where you're scrolling. They are not exclusive to just black people. In fact, major transfer news that's happening, and me and my family saw him a few weeks ago when we did our tour of FAMU, which that video should be coming up. But we did a tour of Florida State, did a tour of FAMU. But we saw Trey Fisher. Trey Fisher is Jimbo Fisher's son, the head coach of Texas A&M, who coached at Florida State. Trey went to a local school in Tallahassee, Florida called Gabi. And he went to a school in Texas, I believe, but then decided to transfer to Florida A&M. And I don't know if he's walking on. I don't know what it is, but he's at FAMU. Obviously, Trey Fisher is white. You know, we'll call him white chocolate because he got a little soul in him. As I remember when he bashed Jimbo, he was mad as hell at his dad. It's one of those things where when your son, like, he's named after you, like, that boy is giving you the business. Like, I'd have slapped the shit out of my Trey if he didn't talk to me. I don't give a damn how wrong I am. You're not gonna like bash me like that, bro. Like, bitch, I named you. You got my name. So, all that being said, it that's what the HBCU is. Like, as I stated, I believe last week, for you people who get upset about why do they have to have this school, it's not a day. It's just it was created. They don't get rid of universities after they've been created and they're monetized. Like, the school was created because your snowflake ass parents or grandparents were threatened and could not fathom going to a school with a black person. They could not fathom drinking out of the same water fountain. They could fuck them, but they couldn't fathom everything else. Because I'm gonna tell you this: you see this complexion? They don't like you. Got to dilute. You got to dilute chocolate in order for it to become milk chocolate. So your granddads could fathom fucking my grandmothers, but couldn't fathom going to school and their kids going to school. So when people say victimization or this, just remember who birthed you. And that's still in your system. Just like the traumas of slavery are still embedded in the DNA, which is science, of many African Americans, you still have an internalized hatred of black people for reasons that you don't even know. But that's why HBCUs, PWIs are predominantly white institutions that have been around basically since the existence, and they pop up all the time. It's nothing overly wrong with either. Very good academic situations, those things. So I bring this up because now she's being fired, and her statement is that she's being treated unfairly and didn't basically get a chance to tell her side of the story or even prove why she wanted to do that. Basically, the university is treating her in the same manner in which she treated the volleyball players. And it's all bad. It's just a bad look on Grambling in general. Here's my advice to HBCUs. As much as I love you, you need harsh critique and criticisms. Get your shit together, or you will be a trivia question. Like, adapt or die. I had a great conversation with Name, Image, and Likeness with some notable alums from an African American institution, FAMU, that I love. And the greatest bar that one of those guys said, we have a typewriter mentality in a smartphone world. You need to get on board. You need to get on board. Yes, this stuff happens at PWIs. but they have better HR and PR and different things that they can do to like make sure that this doesn't make national news or spread like that. She should have never been given the clearance to cut an entire team without the athletic director's fault. And the athletic director should have done a better job of vetting and seeing what happened, making your bed and lying in it, because you don't fire a coach right now knowing that you can't do a nationwide search. You got to go into this season, and now another coach is going to come in, and all that does is breed mediocrity. So I say all that to say it stinks. I hate that that HBCUs have to go through that. And I hate that it's for Grambling. Now, moving forward to the thing that has been really going on in college football, and we haven't had a chance to really speak on. We were supposed to speak on it Friday, but we had pretty ass lawyer. That's my lawyer, but I'm trying to remember what the name of her. That's my lawyer, Shannon L. I don't know how to say her name, and please don't crush me. You got a name like you got a last name like my sister's first name. I don't understand why my sister gets so mad that people mispronounce her name. I kind of get it, because if you can say Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, and all these other names, you should be able to say Kyla. But just realize you don't have a common name. And so, like, people who get upset when people mispronounce their names, give us some grace as we're trying to get on that. But Shannon did a great job of talking about intellectual property as it relates to name, image, and likeness. But we didn't get a chance to go into the fact that USC and UCLA completely shook up the apple cart, and the Big Ten, which is nowhere near 10 teams anymore. The Big Ten has effectively expanded their conference, and they're matching the energies that the SEC did with their last stretch with Texas A&M and Missouri, adding two of the most notable, iconic teams on the left coast. USC is the premier program on the West Coast. Everybody grows up wanting to play for USC, even in down years. It doesn't matter. It's one of those things that's come up. Now, it's actually great that I didn't get a chance to talk about it. I've talked about it a little bit yesterday on the Sporadics podcast presented by Fifth Quarter. I got a chance to talk with Chris and Taylor, Norvell Central. We talked a little bit about the expansion as it relates to Florida State. I'm going to talk about a more general landscape approach right now. And Florida State is going to be in it, but what are the next moves? What are the next building blocks when it comes to college football? And I'm not terming the phrase. This phrase actually, again, 20 years ago was poised. Is college football headed into a Pangea? And if you don't know what Pangea is basically how the world started. It started condensed, and then all the continents shifted apart as time goes on. So really, everything's centered around Africa, which Africa for college football is the South. The South is really where a lot of this stuff is centered. And based upon what I've seen now, I believe it's going to be what they originally talked about in that ESPN magazine article close to 20 years ago. So right now, the first piece in all of this happened when the ACC basically bit off the top teams from the Big East. So we got Miami, Virginia Tech, Syracuse, and Boston College. But originally it was just Miami, Virginia Tech, and Boston College, if I remember correctly. Syracuse came over after we lost Maryland to the Big Ten, which again, Big Ten struck back. And that was kind of everything that you had for a while. There was talk about being a more rapid ascension, but it's actually in the grand scheme of things, it actually has happened relatively fast. I think about 6 years ago is when Texas A&M made their transition, maybe a little bit longer than that, made their transition into the SEC, along with Missouri branching off from the Big 12. And then before this news happened, the Big 12 made major announcements by talking about bringing in Houston, talking about bringing in UCF, Cincinnati, and I'm trying to remember who else I believe that they're bringing in. So Then the Big Ten made their moves, obviously, with bringing in Maryland, bringing in a couple other schools. But now, when they get this USC, UCLA thing, it just makes them a Midwest to West Coast. Excuse me, they're a conference that spreads the entire United States. What does that mean? Now, every one of these conferences has TV deals. These TV deals are the major force in which is pushing people forward, which is why I don't give a shit about name, image, and likeness anymore. Let these young men get paid because the old men are doing everything in their favor, in their best interest, to make sure the universities are getting paid off of the free labor of these young men and women. Because it's not just football, but football is the big piece of it. Now, the Big Ten payouts and the SEC payouts will eventually amass to $100 million a year. In the growing competitive field of college football, it's becoming the haves and the have-nots. And the reason why it's making more news is because now blue blood programs that have grown into blue bloods, your Florida States and your Clemsons and your Miamis, no disrespect to them, that have been really good in the last 40 years are in a situation where they're going to only make $30 million. And at best, if they go throughout the trajectory of this, they'll make $50 million per their television rights agreements. That means you're losing $50 million a year to your Vanderbilts, to your Purdue's, to your Northwesterns, to your schools that really don't give a shit about sports. They're just in the right conference. Now, this doesn't just enhance the athletic experience, it also enhances the visibility of the school, which enhances the visibility of which enhances the visibility of their recruiting, which enhances the ability to grow and expand these universities and make them a better academic institution, on top of being superior athletic facilities. If you look at what Florida State does with the Moore, what Florida's going to do with their football-only facility, and while it is a football-only facility, it gives them the opportunity to be able to do more academic things with their athletes. There's more classroom spaces. There's more offices. Or even shifting those people there, now you've opened up more areas on your campus to be able to have finer facilities. The Moore is an academic institution, an academic building on Florida State's campus. And people who don't know what the Moore is where the main hub of athletics, which is football. Also, to go back to previous, Trey Fisher went to UT Martin, so appreciate that, Caleb Marshall. Now, with that, Clemson, Florida State, and Miami have signed onto this ACC deal that goes through 2036, and it looks like it's very rigid. But the beautiful thing about these people in the wealth is when you see the legal battles, when attorneys have to get involved in it. A lot of times, these deals are made, and they'll just let the attorneys sort it out. Sue me, catch me in court, as they say. As I like to say, when I've been sued before, you'll get it back in blood if I lose. Like you ain't gonna get a dime from me right now. So what does that mean in this instance? The ACC not only has a $50 million buyout, meaning to leave the conference before you're supposed to, you have to pay $50 million. And with the new rights deal through 2036, you have to forfeit all your TV monies through 2036. So based upon that, as it states in the contract, Florida State would not only have to pay a buyout, which would probably be paid by the conference, they would have to forfeit the close to $100 million that they would get from the SEC or the Big Ten every year until 2036. So we're in 2022 right now. You can't leave this year. You can't leave 2023. So they will probably forfeit their money from 2024 to 2036, which is a 12 years. That's a lot of money. That's not going to happen. That's not realistic. Or two things have to really happen. Just from a clean legal standpoint. And I'm going to get into some of the other things that I know Florida State can do and what they might not be able to do. Just depends on how good your lawyers are and who the judge is. If Miami, Florida State, Clemson, say Boston College and maybe Syracuse, if they all go and say we're just leaving, I think it says 8 teams, but if 5 teams come up and say, fuck you, we out of here. That's the New York TV market, one of the biggest. Boston TV market, one of the biggest. Miami market, one of the biggest. And Clemson and Florida State, which don't reside in big TV markets, but of the 10 teams that are remaining that haven't been affected from this conference alignment, they are the biggest draw. Meaning Florida State and Clemson have the most eyes on them nationally from a television perspective. So that makes you a big TV market. Because at the end of the day, it's about eyes and butts and seats. So with Florida State doing this, they can orchestrate that. Florida State and Clemson are key in trying to get out of this. Or they go to the ESPN, which is more likely, and say, hey, in order for you to keep us here, we need to expand. You're losing the Pac-12 because Oregon and Washington have no interest right now in staying in what it is right now. And when the Big 12 talked about merging with the Pac-12, some of the Pac-12 schools basically said you have to get rid of BYU and UCF in order for this to happen. And the Big 12 said we literally just signed them the contracts. That's not happening because the Big 12 wants the Florida market. UCF gets you Orlando, major TV market, dead center of the state, all kinds of different things. And probably knowing Ron DeSantis, he'll probably sue somebody for that shit if he's the governor, because there's going to probably be a push to move the Big 12 championship games or something over here to the state of Florida, just like there's a push to even move ACC headquarters from the Raleigh-Durham area down to Orlando. So those are the two things. You go to ESPN and say, hey, man, we're either going to make this, we're going to dissolve the ACC network if we leave. Even if we got to pay a buyout, even if we negotiate a settlement for TV deals, you're going to lose the ACC network if we leave. And so that forces the conference's hand. Because no matter what, ESPN doesn't want to lose Florida State. They don't want to lose Miami. Hell, they've made 2 30 for 30s on Miami already. Like, they're going to make another one. Talk about what does it look like to be poverty for 20 years and think you're rich. Remember, Miami ain't won shit since I was a junior in high school. But they talk like they've won a national championship last year. They're the most delusional. Anyways, let me not go homerism. Just stay on focus, James. So what does this really mean? And talking to some lawyers, and again, I like to flex this because I've had a little bit of a personal battle where I had a friend flex on me about how much their degree was. Like I don't come from my family doesn't have attorneys all in it. And like my family doesn't have these different things that go in it. But the cool thing is I know a lot of attorneys. I always want to make sure people know that. And I love my friends, and I always rely on my friends first. But here's something that's going on in courts. And I'm very enamored with law because I don't understand it. I love it, but like at the same time, like I don't feel like getting. It's just not a good. If I spent 120, somebody gives me $125,000, I'm gonna give them $1 million in 3 years. That's business. That's my business mind. And there's no knock on it, but like, damn, this is the Athletic. I'm not gonna be up. Here's what happened. Marshall has sued the Conference USA because they wanted to leave by July 1st. Marshall is a public institution. Marshall, Southern Miss, and Old Dominion have declared their intent to leave the league this summer, stating the Conference USA refused to negotiate an exit earlier than the 14 months required by league bylaws. Conference USA responded to that statement by demanding it go to arbitration, which arbitration is nothing more than having a person in the middle that says, man, they say you owe $100 million, you say you owe nothing, $50 million. They meet somewhere in the middle based upon who presents the best case. The third-party arbitrator makes a ruling and could provide immediate injunction relief, requiring Marshall to remain in the league, which is what they want. They don't want them to be able to leave. It's unlikely, but local courts are even more likely to side with schools because they're public universities. the lawsuit is going to be filed in Dallas. And excuse me, that's where Marshall wants the lawsuit filed in West Virginia, not in Dallas, where Conference USA headquarters are, I guess. Marshall's lawsuit cites 4 counts. And this is the one that's important. So again, I'm trying to do what I had Shannon do. I want to break it down to a 4th grade level. The first count argues Marshall has sovereign immunity as a public school. I go ahead and read all 4 counts, but that's the one I'm going to come back to. The second count states that arbitration bylaw did not exist when Marshall joined the league in 2003. Third count argues that arbitration clause only applies to current, former, suspended, or expelled members, not withdrawing members. And the last count is the Conference USA's arbitration demand, and Marshall will suffer actual, imminent, immediate, and irreparable harm without it. Last 3 are just subjective, don't really mean that much to me, but it's the sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity is basically stating that a government institution is immune to your normal lawsuits, and there's a cap that could be on it. And so these lawsuits ain't like if I sue you for $250,000 or for your law degree. It's not that. I got it. That's a lot of money to me, though. When you sue a university, you're suing for millions. And it's going to, again, $50 million exit clause, $100 million that you have to forfeit every year. What is that over 12? That's $1.2 billion over 10 years. I mean, over 12 years. This real bread that's coming in. That's real bread involved in this exit to the ACC. So what Clemson and Florida State can argue is that the ACC can't sue them but for so much money because they're a public institution. And so the cap wouldn't even cover legal fees. Like the money isn't really that great, is what I'm saying. So that's really what the public schools in the ACC have to deal with. Now, Miami being a private institution, they're not backed by the same laws that Florida State's used. But here's what they do have: they've got money, they've got lawyers, and they don't care. So what normally happens in these manners is the same thing that happens with pharmaceutical companies when they decide that they want to make a product that they know has side effects. It's how much money do we stand to make versus how much money do we stand to lose? Is the risk worth the liabilities? So, like, yes, you can say this drug is going to make us $20 billion, and based upon the risk variables, we stand to lose $5 billion in lawsuits. You made $15 billion over the course of that time, and you don't have to pay it all out. You probably get a loan on the payout, and so you'll just pay it back over time. So what does that mean? So let's say Miami does want to leave, and it's the SEC that everybody goes to. The SEC is going to negotiate. Is going to probably cover the fees. They're going to cover the buyout, and they're going to cover whatever you get negotiated, whatever the number that gets negotiated, which will probably be a collective sum of whatever. The point is that the money is too great to be able to lose. Now, the ACC, there are 2 other things as I talk about this subject very long because it's so interesting and it's so current. Actually, before I go into the ACC, Notre Dame is the school that really people are acting like they don't have a play here, but if they're shrewd, they have a really good play here. Notre Dame is the only school in the nation that has their own individual TV contract. It's not the biggest in the world, but they have their own individual because they're not a part of a conference. That's always been one of the arguments about Notre Dame joining a conference is they have to ditch the NBC deal. But the NBC deal is basically them, or over time, it's been them basically getting a BCS bowl settlement. I mean, BCS bowl buyout. So when they make a bowl game, they get all their revenue. And when with NBC, they get paid all their money. But the fact remains is they have a deal with NBC. NBC Sports took a tremendous hit when they lost the NFL. What better way than to get back into the game and to get into a conference a conference ownership. And what better way for Notre Dame to control their own destiny than creating their own conference? What does Notre Dame possess, right? So Notre Dame possesses natural rivalries with Boston College, Catholic school. They possess the rivalry with USC, even though they're going to the Big Ten, but still you have that natural rivalry. You have quote two rivalries that are not real, but are close between Florida State and Miami. You play Florida State all the time. Miami, you've played some of the most iconic college football games against the University of Miami, dubbed Catholics versus Convicts. Love the term. Love the term. It's always awesome. You have the ability to go poach at Georgia Tech, while a private institution, you can get the Atlanta market. So let's look at what they can do with just their relationships in the ACC. Syracuse doesn't care. They just want to be around. So you get the New York market. You have the natural relationship with Boston College. You get the Boston market. Pick up Clemson and Florida State. Get two of the most iconic, two blue bloods. Miami market. So three of the top markets. Let's say you go get Georgia Tech and Atlanta, one of the largest TV markets. Notre Dame, Chicago market. And you're in the Midwest now. Now you spill over to the West Coast if you want to. And now what you've created is two conferences that have a better brand value than the SEC, not because of football, and I'll get into that later, but because they stretch conferences and you can charge more money or get in more boxes, because here's what you can do. Imagine this, Saturday morning, you wake up noon, Florida State versus whomever. 3:30, you still have your Southern or your Midwestern games. 8 o'clock, you can have a West Coast game now. West Coast game or a primetime Southeastern game. Midnight. ESPN no longer has the left coast football league. Basically, when you play all the teams on the West Coast play, now you own that share. And only two conferences have that: the Big Ten with Fox, and if Notre Dame has NBC, and they go and do it. See, the purist in me sits back, and you know what I can do now? I can go 12 hours and watch college football. And if you think, just to use this meme, which I want to talk about verses and how they can get better in my head o'clock, to use the Usher meme that's been overused, if you don't think I can sit down and watch 12 hours of college football, watch this, watch this, watch this. Watch me. I'll do it at Goodfellas. I'll do it at my house with a cigar from thehumidor.com and something expensive that I pour from ABC Fine Wine and Spirits. And when I want to take a break, I'll go shoot a gun from Green Acre Sporting Goods. You don't know how powerful college football is. It was a comedian, white comedian. Jokes about racism are phenomenal from anybody when done with tact. He says, you want to know how powerful football is? Football can cure racism. Disney made a movie about it. It's called Remember the Titans. That was over the span of 8 weeks. They cured racism in an entire movie. They did. Hey, man, I know I can't drink from. I don't want to drink from this water fountain, and I know I called your dad boy, but the football team is 4-0. Look at how happy people are on Saturdays. Think about it. This is curing the nation in a time where it's split apart. You're joining coasts. Abraham Lincoln couldn't have done this better than what's going on right now because of greed. It's why capitalism works. But the guy did say, like, if the LGBTQ community wanted people to join them, put together a football team and beat Alabama and watch how hard. And watch how hard people root for you. So I don't understand them, but them some bitches can play. Some bitches got heart. The idea is queer to me, but damn it, they use a fullback. And if you want to win, get a ball to the goddamn fullback. I'm telling you, it's all stuck in sports somewhere. But bigger than that, too, is the expansion does affect other sports extremely well. And it condenses this thing. I've talked about it on Sports Den since we've had the show. There are 50 schools that can even dream about making the playoffs in the first 3 weeks of the season. And even those guys get condensed to 3, maybe 4. Every conference has 1 team, 2 max that can compete with anybody. And that's just the reality. Sometimes it fluctuates. Right now it's Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson. Nobody in the Pac-12. That's why nobody cares. That's why I don't understand the Miami Mario stuff. Mario was at Oregon and got bullied by Utah. Mormons. You got all the money in the world with Uncle Phil Knight up there, and you got bullied by Mormons. Think about that. You so tough, but you got your ass whooped by Mormons. So, but here's the last thing, and I think this is more likely to happen now. And sometimes you gotta whip it out and let people know it's big in order for people to not either play with it or not. And Florida State, Clemson, and everybody had to do this and say, like, I'm leaving you. Divorce is terrible, but sometimes the threat of it and you walking out and flirting with a bitch is the only way you're gonna get somebody to understand that you mean business and that you are fine. They had to do it, but now ACC, what can you do? What's more realistic? The relationships with ESPN is more realistic to get Oregon, Washington, Stanford. Cal, I think, is bowing out. You can get Utah. You can get the primary players in the Pac-12 to join your conference. Pick up Notre Dame or pick up somebody in the Midwest during the process, and now you have another league that goes cross country. And for the people who keep talking about travel costs, oh my God, have you looked at it's the same? Because the argument happened with people about, well, I don't want to play in the Big Ten because Florida boys don't play well in snow. Bitch, have you lived up north before? It does. I know I joke about it. Why I don't like going to Boston because it snows 365 days a year. It doesn't. It doesn't. Do you know when it really gets cold up in the north? In January. December, maybe. You do have a white Christmas. A guy who has roots in Philly and Trenton, New Jersey. Like, I can tell you how many Christmases we went home and stayed in Big Daddy's house and were disappointed as Florida kids because we didn't see a drip of snow. You know what it is sometimes in December around Christmas time in Philly and Trenton, New Jersey? It's just as fucking cold as it is in Florida. It's very depressing. You'll have a brief dip in November, but the reality is it's actually more pleasant to play football in October when you're playing in high as 70-degree temperatures. Now, the clips that they're showing of the Big Ten recently are when COVID pushed everything back into December. So that's when it snows. We'll be done. We'll be getting ready for a bowl game. And when it comes to travel, you literally have 4 away games most of the time. Most teams play 8 home games, 4 away games. So you're talking about, and then you have your regional matchups. So think about Florida State, for example. One, when I played, we always had a long trip. My first game at Florida State was in Kansas City, and we played against Iowa State. We're going to play Miami and Florida every year still. And they alternate home and away. So that's one of our away games already. And we typically play them in November. So the only kind of cold month, one of the weeks is gone. So we may play one game in a cold month or one game on the West Coast during that time, which kind of sucks. Then you have you got Clemson that will probably keep on a regular. The point is that you're arguing over a few games, and it's not that many. And once you get on a flight, man, it is a flight. Like, I don't know how many of you fly regularly. The difference between an hour and 15-minute flight and a 2-hour flight ain't much. And we literally just go to, we don't fly like y'all fly. It's direct flights because they're chartered. And you don't even go through the airport. You take the bus to the tarmac, you get on the goddamn plane, and you leave. And you sleep. And they're comfortable. And it's a lot of fun. You guys should try it. And it's also seeing different things. And the reason why I would prefer the Big Ten or even this schedule with the Pac-12, I'm fucking terrified of the South. Like, I know, James, you live in Florida. I live in Florida. I know it. I go to big cities in Florida. The South is made up primarily of small towns. In Florida, I go to Jacksonville, Tallahassee, Miami, Orlando, and Tampa, or the areas. I'm not going to Polk County. I'm not from there. I ain't going to. I played against Mariana every year in high school and was terrified to go to fucking Mariana. I don't like what I drove to Pensacola. I've been to Pensacola 3 times my entire life. One time I drove and then I said I'm never doing that shit again. No, 2 times. Wedding I drove, don't remember it. I had to drive because I missed my flight, got messed up and canceled, and I had to pull over into a stop. And you know what I saw? I saw a packed Arby's. That lets you know how fucking terrified I was, because that's why I know the only people who go to Arby's are a specific type of people consistently. Them motherfuckers was there, and then I flew. But it's got a lot of little towns, very Alabama-ish, very Mississippi-ish. I'm a history major. A lot of bad shit happened in Mississippi and Alabama back in y'all think it was forever ago, bitch. My mama was a child, like when this shit happened. Emmett Till would be the same age as my uncle if he was alive, and the lady who's still alive did not lie. Just saying. It's wild. But going back to that, I think it was Emmett, yeah, because that lady's my yeah. Anyways, whatever. And Arkansas is crazy too. And Arkansas is crazy for like the different reasons. You got the Alabama, Mississippi issue, then you got Little Rock. They fucking made an HBO series about how gangster Little Rock is. Little Rock is like Baltimore in the middle of the South. I don't want no parts of that. I don't want no parts of Baltimore. They made a 5-season show called The Wire about Baltimore. It's crazy. I like LSU. Baton Rouge is cool. But them little other places in Louisiana are a little crazy too. Good food, though. At least they got good food. I'm saying all this to say is you won't catch me dead at a fucking away game in the SEC unless it's Athens. I don't go to games, but it's basically Athens. That's it. I'm going to Columbus, major metro. I'm going to Ann Arbor, which is around the corner from a major metro. Michigan State, Detroit, basically, major metro. I'm going to the major metro cities. And we're going to have a good time. Penn State versus Florida State in the Orange Bowl back in 2005 or 2006 was one of the greatest experiences I've ever had playing in a football game. Them motherfuckers traveled. They were there for 2 weeks in Miami. It was great. They got this little cowbell thing they do. I'm sitting here thinking about one thing that you Florida State fans don't do. You only come to games when we're winning. That's all they got to do up there. They will trap. They find out they looking at Florida, and they're planning vacations around that. All the hotels are going to be booked in Tallahassee. Actually, not just Tallahassee. Tallahassee in a 2-hour radius, because you know what people up north don't mind doing? Driving. Because it takes them 2 hours to get everywhere anyway, because of traffic or just distance. It will bring so much more money to the state and to the university that outside of the TV deals. But again, this is a lot of you guys who don't know anything past your little perception of what things are. And that's cool. I'm just telling you as a guy who's well-traveled, played the game, and knows things from a different perspective. So it's still moving. It's still dope. It's going to be incredible when this all pans out. And the biggest thing is we no longer feel like Florida State is going to get left out. And there's no better athletic time to do it than now, because imagine this being negotiated by the last 2 athletic directors Florida State's had. This would be madness. The one black guy who's at the NCAA got us in this contract in the first place. And even though I love his wife, Coburn, David Coburn, you bless your heart. You're an accountant. You weren't blessed to do this. This isn't your wheelhouse. Now, going into something where what bothers me, and I tease it a little bit, this will be my 8 o'clock, brought to you by Green Acres Sporting Goods. Green Acres Sporting Goods is the go-to outdoor resource. Like everything you want outdoors is there. You want crossbows, bows in there?
Yep.
Call me on that. Just say James said it was this, and then they'll cuss me out. If you still want an Anthony Richardson, you can get one of those, and you say Sports Did sent you, you get a specific price. If you want bullets, they got it. And that AR, that Anthony Richardson is a 30 cal. If you want 9mm, pump shotguns, all these different things, go there. The best way to support the show, besides clicking like, retweeting, and telling people about it, is to support the sponsors. I'm gonna level with you. Really don't give a shit how many of you listen or watch this. I need y'all to go support the sponsors. That's the most important thing. If 5 of y'all go and buy a gun this month, I'm good. I'm Gucci, baby. Go get you your concealed carry permit as well. Very good gun safety class. I think more people need to understand all that comes with owning a gun. So false equivalencies are terrible. You can think a situation sucks, and this situation absolutely sucks. I absolutely think that this is the dumbest thing that Russia's trying to do. Russia is really putting Brittany Griner in a really, really bad position. They're trying to give her 10 years for vape pen and some hashish. And it's illegal. It's not legal in Russia. It's illegal. Clearly illegal. She's the only person in her group that had it, and she's admitted to having the vape pen. So, like, the rules aren't being set up on her to, like, put her in a bad position per se. It's her own bad choices that put her in this position. It still doesn't make it right. It's still not right. But what's sad is the false equivalency. People are literally saying that if this were LeBron James, he'd be free by now. And I want to make sure I say it. This is the coach from the her WNBA team, Vanessa Negard or whatever. If it were LeBron, he would be home, right? It's a statement of value of women. It's a statement of about the value of a black person. It's a statement about the value of a gay person. One, LeBron's black. That's one. So if you kind of negate your one of your three arguments by saying that LeBron would be free, but LeBron's he's also one of the biggest stars in the NBA, which has global reach. Two, when people keep bringing LeBron and other African American males into this argument, you're forgetting that every day we see African American males get slaughtered in the streets. You've seen routine traffic stops end in a black male dying. Other black women have died as well, but we see this very, very often. We just saw a young African American male who had his back turned and was hit with 61 shots, 90 rounds shot in his direction from 10 police officers. So let's miss me on that one. LeBron James has never got we've never seen a speeding ticket from LeBron. There's never been anything publicized of LeBron being in any kind of trouble to even fathom that this hypothetical situation that could happen with him. Brittany has abused the mother of her child. She's literally put her hands on a woman. See, nobody wants to say that no other person who's committed domestic violence would be used as a negotiating pawn. We would talk about it, much like we continue to talk about Brittany Griner, because she does deserve to be free. But what you don't need to do is try to bring other things in it that really detract from what your argument is. And what you have to also remember is that Brittany Griner is not the only U.S. citizen in a Russian jail. And to think that any president would leverage, because this is what they want in return for Brittany Griner. So I want people to understand this. What they want in return is an arms dealer, an illegal arms dealer. So you want more like weapons of mass destruction out, and a Russian spy. I got news for you. LeBron ass would be in jail too. We're not finna go in World War II for an athlete. And this is where people actually have an argument against athletes. Your privilege earns you something in the United States. It does not earn you shit in other countries, man. In particular, Russia, which is fucking corrupt and crazy. I don't ever go anywhere out of the country and make sure that I'm not clean. I remember what happened to me in the DR. I've joked about it. I got jammed coming in. None of my fault. I almost got jammed going out. And what's ironic is when I got jammed going out, I got these cigars, H. Upman's, Cubans, very good cigar, delicious. Like if you bringing me Cubans, don't bring me no damn Cohiba or Romeo y Juliet unless it's a specific type of Cohiba and it's anyways specific type of Cohiba like this. But they're in these seals, right? So I hadn't opened it up, but there's this thing that happens to cigars sometimes when they're in humidors for a while. It's called plume. It looks like mold, but there's a difference between mold and plume. But it's to say the least, like mold, you can see inside of the cigar. Like I've had some that unfortunately molded and it stinks. But plume is just a light powdery substance on the outside. Do you know that they almost patted me down? The thing, and I dipped my cigars in cocaine.
Wow.
They had to test the substance. And when I look at it, maybe I get it. It's just kind of one of those things, man. And again, this whole situation is quite unfortunate. That being said, this is why you have to really, really, really be careful about how you move when you travel abroad. I hope she gets free. I don't think she deserves 10 years. I just really want us to stop trying to compare a guy who's been nothing but a phenomenal husband, from what we know. Phenomenal husband, great father, upstanding citizen that's building schools, building scholarships, building job opportunities, to people who just dribble, because it really demeans the impact of one of our because one of the things she put in there, the value of a black person. You really devalue our entire thing. That's like saying the guy who was the guy I spoke about who beat the hell out of his girlfriend, because that's all I can think about. I don't support domestic abusers. Miles Bridges, I think, right?
Yeah.
I don't support domestic abusers. Spousal abuse is a very, very big no-no in my books. So like that's no matter what. And you know what? If LeBron were in that situation and he had hit Savannah and had a history of it, and he got freed, we would have nothing but think pieces about this.
And as you said, there are other detainees.
Right. And then the other part of it is, what makes you more valuable than the other Americans who literally were over there doing their job, investigative reporting, just got caught up.
She mentions them in a letter to the president. So we empathize with them all as humans, but there are other people caught up in the same situation at the same time.
And so that's just my whole take on that. And I'm gonna end the hate o'clock again. I hate ending it with heavy stuff because I really do hope she gets out. But I'm gonna end it on something lighter. Kinda. Lighter for me and you, because we get to laugh at this. One, before I get to that, shout out to the thick woman on TikTok that I had to do a duet with. And she finally, like, because women like are weird in this thing where they talk about men don't like this or why is this beautiful. It's typically like chunky women. No, they don't like you. You're the chunky woman they don't like. Chunky women getting pregnant every day and getting more sex, because you know what skinny women do? They'll always say, "Here I am single, and this person has a man." No, it's you. They don't like you. I'm just making that there. But she said, I see all this. If you 200 pounds plus, post a pic. Because again, there's a lot of posts of men who like 200 big women. And she's, shouted out us guys who are over 250 pounds. So I wanted to make sure I give her props. But the last thing, and I saw that this morning, it was the wildest shit ever. At freckle faced FCK, triple F on Twitter. Wildest shit today was talking to a homeowner that was getting some work done. His wife wasn't home. Turns out his septic tank was clogged. Here's where it gets crazy. It was clogged with like 80 condoms. Bro said he hasn't worn a condom in 20 years. Yeah. And another guy who's a Florida State guy, John Herman. He's a plumber. If you need any plumbing needs, go at John_FF on HD. As a plumber, you'd be surprised at how often this happens. So what I'm going to end this with is some free game by Big Game. Ignorance is bliss. If you're happy, don't go fucking up your happiness. If you go looking for it, you're going to find it. Let it happen to you like this young homeowner happened, like this guy happened to him. It fucked up his world. But I'm going to tell you this is some free game. I know what social media has showed you. I know what simps have told you. I know women have told you that men are some of the worst people in the world. But here's what I want you to know. Somebody has to be a complicit party. Women ain't shit just like men ain't shit. Nobody owns a monopoly on the market. In fact, I'd argue that women cheat more. And it's not because of what you think. Women are not the best cheaters. Men are, but here's what I mean by that. Men are happy with the place that you put them in. Men don't go trying to replace the man. They're going to actually get something. And women who have their side piece can have that guy doing that, and he stays in that role. You don't have to worry about consistently the man coming up and saying, I want to come in and take over that man's role. He knows you're fucking crazy. He just knows he has this one aspect of your personality, and he's getting the best of you. It's why people say the best position to be in is the side position, especially for women. I know you don't want to hear this, but think about what the side chick always gets. She'll get in arguments. She gets gifts normally, and she gets some of the best sex because the main chick who has the house, has all this stuff, isn't doing what she needs to do for whatever reason. Cheating is cheating. But what I tell you this is that, guys, if you go around thinking that no woman is capable of doing the things that a man can do, that's why you get your heart broken. That's why you go over the top with shit. You got to know this because these are not one-off situations. I hate to be the guy to have to break it to you. The shit happens, man. But on that note, just don't go to Green Acres after this happens. Unless you're going to a gun range. But just don't go and then, because then that's dumb. Because then nothing really comes of this. You can always rebuild. 80 condoms is a bit excessive, though. And you shouldn't flush condoms.
That part.
We've known this for years. Women just do a better job of not getting caught unless it's in extreme situations and circumstances. That being said, man, appreciate you guys joining us. We'll be back in a couple days. Hope you recover from your fourth. Hope you've hit the ground running. Go back and make up that money for all them charges that you done rung up the last couple of days. And we'll see you guys later.